No, but I understand your confusion.
Call back. That was a callback. Everybody put your hands together for the callback.
It was a callback. It was a call. Hi there, everybody, boys and girls, and everyone in between. I'm Antonicus Maximus, and if you're hearing the beautiful sound of my voice, that means you're live and alive with us. Well, kind of, listening to another edition of the Ludic Loungecast. Guess who's with me again, folks? As always.
It's your boy, John. How's everybody doing?
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to go way more over the top. You went sultry, smooth, dulcet tones of, it's your boy, John. How is everybody?
I think I'm just coasting off of that Henry Cavill video where he used Barry White, and I just figured that might be the thing to do.
So sensual.
So planned, but so sensual.
So sensual. I was like rubbing myself in non-naughty bits, maybe naughty bits. Who knows? Leave it up to your own mind. While watching it, listening to it. Just put me in a good time place.
Shows up.
Yep.
Just a floating mustache. Disembodied Justice League mustache.
But that fucking Mission Impossible mustache. I still have yet to watch that movie as a confession to you again.
It's a great fucking movie. You should get the fuck on it.
I know. I'm so far behind. I've seen 3 and that's it. Not 3. I saw 1, 2, and 3, obviously. But like after 3, I'm like, yeah, I need to watch all the non-numerical Mission Impossibles where they do crazy and wacky things, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of form, like, ever since 3, it's just been like one straight story, it seems like, at least. You know, they're more focused on making it kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Beautiful, magnificent,
narrative.
Sexy.
More of a consistent narrative, and yes, all of those. As much as you can apply those to Tom Cruise.
You know what, John? It's like old Grandpappy Maximus used to say, consistency and narrative is the new sexy. But he said it years ago, so obviously it was the old sexy. But it's making a retro, man, because everything old is new again.
Yeah, I mean, that is fair. I mean, we are talking about a movie series that was, adapting a 60s TV show.
God, I forget about that. It's crazy,
I know.
Man.
I think nobody, like, unless you're like doing a deep Wikipedia dive, I think most people are just like, oh, Tom Cruise is doing an action movie. Okay.
Pretty much.
Somewhere in the back of their mind, it's like based off a TV show.
Yeah. At this point, like, no one's like, oh, there's a TV show based off that Tom Cruise movie? Until they know it's like, no, it was in the 60s. Oh, they traveled back in time to do a movie about to do a TV show about the Tom Cruise movie?
And that's how you find out time travel exists. Oh, boy.
So, folks, we're not here to talk about time travel today.
We went off the rails quick.
Oh, right. Unless you want to talk about time travel into movies that we saw that we're ranking today. So today, what John and I will go into after our normal banter about what we're watching, reading, consuming, etc., we're going to rank the top 3 good DC movies after we kind of shat on 3 pretty god-awful movies, but rightly so.
Yeah, you can go back to last week's episode and kind of digest all of that because Anthony and I have opinions on Zack Snyder. And, I'm pretty sure we'd like the guy personally, and we do like some of his movies.
Would we, though? Would we like him personally?
Probably not. I'm just assuming, he seems like a nice enough guy, and I don't want to shit on him too much, but...
You're trying to do the whole, like...
I don't know.
What fallacy is that? The straw man?
I think
no.
So.
You're just like building up like, look, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but he kicks puppies in the street.
I mean, he kicked Superman in the balls, so, I mean...
Yeah, he erased his beautiful, luscious Mission Impossible mustache, obviously. I would have liked to see him with a mustache, man. Just keep that shit on.
Or just put him with a beard. Just, say, hair grows when you're dead. It just grew. That's it.
It just grew, man. Even on Kryptonians.
Yeah, he just didn't have a chance to shave it. I'm sorry. That's just the reality of it.
Like, damn, dog, he's not a Ken doll. He's a Kryptonian.
Yeah, plus, Henry Cavill looks better with a beard anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing. I haven't seen that movie, hearkening back to what we just talked about, but boy, that mustache and that, machine gun arm reload he did in that bathroom scene from the trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the shit.
I was going to say, I have never wanted to be a broken sink more in my life than in that scene that I saw in the trailer.
Because you just wanted that mustache ride?
I just wanted that mustache ride. I wanted that. I wanted America's ass smashed in my face.
Completely different person.
No. Because Superman's the real America.
Where are you going with this?
You know where I'm going with this, John, is a nice transition into some news that you recently tagged me on one of our social media platforms, how the 1940s/50s animated Superman serial role are now getting a remastered version.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Transition.
Yeah, transition. I mean, you and I have not been quiet about our love for Superman, but I mean, I think we can say that our fandom for the character does go back to those 1940s Max Fleischer Superman cartoons.
Absolutely.
So for those people who don't know their film history, when film, at least the movies with sound started happening.
The speakies.
The talkies.
Talkies. God damn it. No, it's the talkies. I'm pretty sure it was the talkies.
I'm pretty sure too. I'm just going off the top of my head here, but they went from the silent pictures to the talkies, and nobody had TVs back in the day. So if you wanted to get your news outside of a newspaper, you would go to the movie theater, and before whatever movie you saw, they would play a newsreel that would give you kind of like a brief summary of things that are going on across the world and across the country. And
FDR says the only thing to fear is fear itself as we embark on this new stage of the Great Depression and possibly entering the Great War.
Yeah, and a lot of times the broadcasters would sound a lot like that. Another thing that they would have, in addition to the newsreels, were cartoons. That's how you get Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. They were just like these 10, 15-minute shorts that just told a really quick story just to get some laughs or whatever, just to entertain. Superman, being created in 1938, was one of those characters that ended up getting an adaptation on the silver screen in these cartoons that were produced by Max Fleischer and his team.
Faster than a spinning bullet.
More powerful than a locomotive.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. The man from Krypton, Superman.
That theme song puts a run for its money up against the John Williams one, I must say.
Oh, absolutely, man. 100%.
But
as the narrator's like, yes, Superman. In this week's adventure, he grabs Lois Lane and they fight off the mugsters on the street of New York.
Or something along those. So they were just like these quick little at first were sci-fi stories. Later, as the U.S. went into World War II, they became part of the war propaganda machine. So you're probably like watching like half of those, and then the other ones are just like probably mildly racist at this point.
Yeah. I mean, remember, Superman couldn't go fight in World War II because Hitler had a magical device that stopped him from being able to go and fight in Europe. So he counted on our loyal armed forces of the U.S. to go over there and sock one on the jaw of Mein Führer.
There's a comic where it essentially is how Superman won the war. It's like 2 pages. It wasn't anything official published by DC. It was like put into a magazine, but it's literally just how Superman would have won the war, and it's 2 pages.
Did Hitler go, Martha, Martha? And then Superman went, where did you see the name?
No, I don't. I think he just, it was a lot more pants shitting than Martha screaming. Probably
so. Did Hitler wear his brown pants that day?
He was wearing his red shirt, more like. So unfortunately, it's not an official upscale to 4K. It looks like somebody, a YouTuber, decided to try it himself, and to be honest, he did an impressive job. And I hope that it's something that AT&T and Warner Brothers are paying attention to, because I think that you put out those like early sci-fi stories, I think you have something incredible.
Oh, absolutely, especially the episode with the robots.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I think
the fact that Superman saving Lois from a golden shower.
I mean, that's why the villains were Kelly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was actually supposed to be magma, but it just looked like something was pissing all over him.
Yeah, so. Superman would definitely take that bullet.
Would he be faster than speeding? Less speeding urine stream?
In that one, probably. He's probably better off that way. But a couple years ago, those Fathom events that do like, they replay old movies every now and then?
Absolutely. I saw Casablanca for my birthday 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
I watched it at the same time myself.
Yeah.
We've mentioned that many a time. But a couple of years, I think in 2018, for the, I think, 40th anniversary of the Dick Donner Superman movie, the first Christopher Reeve Superman, they played one of the Fleischer shorts right before the movie.
It was the one with the robots, wasn't it?
Probably.
Had to be. Yeah.
To be honest, I couldn't go see it because I was still in school at the time, and it was around the time of finals, so I literally could not go, and I was so disappointed. And I learned after the fact, oh yeah, they played a Fleischer cartoon right before. And I'm like, God damn it!
Like, I don't need a law degree. Fuck it. I don't need a law degree. I need to see Superman on the big screen.
Yeah, I wish. Catholic guilt. It's a terrible thing. It's just terrible. Absolutely terrible.
This is wrong. It's terrible.
Now, to save the DC talk for later, because boy, we went off the rails again.
I had to get a clean transition, man.
I know. Anthony, what are you watching? What you playing?
Oh boy!
Give it to the people.
I'm gonna give it all to the people. Just every ounce, every centimeter of love to the people.
Just no magma shower, please.
No promises. Bingo! What I've been playing most recently, I've been diving a lot more and back into my sports games.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing a lot of NBA 2K20 for some goddamn reason, and I've been a mad lad and doing like the online stuff. And for some reason, I just decided to be a mad lad, and that's been my most recent one. But before that, I was playing a small little indie game. Now, if it's an actual indie game, I'm not 100% sure because I don't know the studio off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's an indie game. It's a little game called Coffee Talk. Okay. Now, in this game, John, and everyone listening at home or loyal listeners, it's a simulator. It's like a life simulator, and you play the role of a barista in a small coffee shop in Seattle. But in this small coffee shop world, it's an alternate universe where there are monsters. And by monsters, I mean werewolves, vampires, elves, dwarves, etc. And so you're seeing what current day kind of politics look like through the lens of using these catalysts. There's a lot of talks about like one of the few people you meet. So these people just walk in your coffee shop, you make them a cup of coffee based on what they're looking for. So they say, yeah, I'm looking for something hot but sweet, but no, not caffeinated. So you do your best to find a good combo. And
this all sounds like the beginning of a porn, though.
Kind of, but not really. At least this is a good. This one at least has story, John.
Okay, I'll take it.
But essentially, like if you give them the right combination, they start to open up to you and to each other. And one of the stories that's super interesting is one of the regular customers, quote unquote, is a human, and she is a regular coffee shop. She works at a newspaper, does a lot of short stories, but she is looking to write a story of her own, like a great fictional piece.
The great American novel, if you will.
Essentially, yeah, that's kind of how it feels. And in this novel, she's taking stories that she hears from the coffee shop, but obviously doing the responsible thing and not putting like, and then Ben said, like, no, obviously she's fictionalizing it, over dramatizing certain aspects, things like that. But one couple in particular really had me intrigued, and I actually finished their storyline before I jumped back into my Mad Lad sports games. And that was a interracial couple. It was a succubus and an elf, and they were in a relationship together. Yeah, but not like the kind of negative connotation succubus, John. So get your mind out of the gutter there.
I mean, I'm just trying to keep it entertaining.
No, that's fair because I am droning on. But in this couple,
No, you're not.
Through this, no, I'm not. But through this lens of the barista in this world, you're seeing that you're starting to understand the politics that elves are kind of like the higher class societies in this world. They have immortality, but they can give up their immortality if they choose to segregate themselves from their family name, their family history, whatever. And apparently that getting away from that esteem, getting away from that privilege, they lose their immortality. They gain normal sicknesses like people do.
Okay.
And so and you also learn from the succubus in this world, in this realm, that they are very tight-knit, family-oriented, as are the elves for obvious reasons. But the female succubus character, she is trying to convince her elf boyfriend to not leave his family. Now the boyfriend's like, I'm tired of this. My family are racist. They hate every other race that is an elf, they don't want me to see people outside of my race, and I'm ready to leave that life, and I want to leave it for you. And that scares the Miss Succubus girlfriend, saying, like, because she is from such a family unit society, that it scares her. And they have, they come to the coffee shop a few times, and each time, sometimes it's together, and then you start to see one-on-one when they had like a little tiff and breakup. And it's just like how they write these characters. And again, you're just not the bartender, excuse me, you're just the barista, but you're kind of playing barista therapist as you're serving them drinks to kind of help their mood. And the other patrons of this coffee shop kind of talk to these folks, and they give their 2 cents. And it's just a great introspective on like race relations, and how it plays parallel to what we're dealing with now and have been dealing with now for the past 200 plus years. And again, I haven't finished it yet, so I haven't completed all the different storylines, but and again, each different character that comes in the bar or comes into the shop has their own backstory with their own problems, their own issues that they're trying to help resolve or get resolved. And it's just, you start to build up the sense of community through these same, like, let's say 5-6 characters that come to this coffee shop. And again, it was so introspective, just something different. I've never played anything like it before. I know there's other games in this kind of a realm, like there's a bartender simulator where it's kind of a similar thing, but that's more of a cyberpunk world. But it's just really cool, and it just opened up kind of a lot of ideas, and I'm interested to see the end of it, just to see, because one of the main ideas that the author gal, the writer, was kicking around is like, well, what if I think I'm going to create this world in which everyone's a human, and do it from an perspective of, if this world was only humans and there wasn't, vampires or werewolves or anything like that. So I'm kind of interested to see how that goes and what that looks like, and how you can compare and contrast of what, she got right and what she got wrong based on like real actual life relationships and politics and all these other things.
Yeah, no, that sounds fascinating. I mean, it's rare when a game gets to, interrogate relationships on that level, I think. And especially it sounds like it's trying to get to, questions of class and how race is treated and all that stuff, and
absolutely. And politics too. Like there's some like little newspaper clippings before you start your barista shift that you read, and it's talking about, how certain races they're trying to stop certain races from entering the US, and again, playing to a lot of the politics that we have been seeing for all these years now, not just under this current administration, but for years and years, honestly.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
and it's just so fascinating to see it from this spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, that's what good fiction does, is that it gets to question what the world is, through that lens, and makes it, I guess, simpler to digest.
But also, it's not just that it's dumbing down these things. It's making, and again, from my perspective, and again, everyone playing it has different perspectives, but from this unnamed, you name the character whatever you want them. So again, mine's Antonicus the barista. But through this nameless, faceless character, not nameless because they mention your name, but it's all like 8-bit, 16-bit, not 8-bit, 16 or 32-bit, like retro feel to it, where there's no spoken words. It's just you're reading all this dialogue, right?
Right.
But through this faceless character, you're just kind of seeing how you reflect in this world and what your impact in this world looks like. And it just brings you a lot of perspective of, hey, maybe I didn't think of it from this perspective, bringing it back to real life. Maybe I didn't think of this class issue, little things like that. And outside of coffee talk and my sports games, I dabbled a little bit into Diablo 3 because my younger brother Joey said he wanted to start doing a co-op with that. So I jumped into that for like a couple minutes. I didn't get much time to dabble into it. But it's your basic like dungeon crawl kind of a game, much like Diablo 2 was. It feels like Diablo 2 with updated graphics and, updated combat, et cetera, et cetera. So that's fascinating, and I hope to dive into that a little bit more. I have some heartbreaking video game news, and by that, I want to say that I think I've decided that I'm going to wait till the PS5 drops before I get Ghost of Tsushima as well as Final Fantasy VII Remake, John.
I mean, you're giving me the setup to talk about what I've been playing, which I greatly appreciate.
Transitions.
We are good at transitions. So I'm not surprised, considering that the PS5 is, from what we understand, a couple months away. I don't blame you for it. Gaming wise, I finally finished BioShock.
Ah, thank you kindly, John.
Now, Anthony, would you kindly explain to me what the fuck that game is? No, I understand what that game is, but I finally get that joke. It's fucked up.
It is a fucked up joke.
Yeah,
fucked up joke.
I'm a little mixed on that first BioShock right now. I think the atmosphere and the premise are completely fascinating. The art style, rightfully so, gained all the accolades it deserved. I mean,
absolutely.
I think everybody has a fondness for Art Deco because it just looks so foreign to what we're used to in our world now. I mean, it's kind of faded away from the physical sense. I think you don't see
the pop culture, the pop cultural lexicon, essentially, if you will.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I was referring more to anything that was Art Deco design wise. I mean, I don't think it's physically prevalent in the world as much outside of any historical monument that has been declared historical and is no
fair point.
So I think that it's just it feels richer in our heads. It's just oh, this is somebody who put in some thought as opposed to functionality. And was just wanted to express something out of this style than just having a building where people have to go to either work or live. I think that there's a lot of interesting class questions and race questions that I think later games keep harping on and expanding upon, and some dropping the ball a little bit from my recollection. But I mean, I think what hurt me about BioShock is that the protagonist is kind of just the empty shell, which I can't really get invested in. But I mean, from the story perspective, it makes sense why he's an empty shell because of what you learn. So, and it also gives you the ability to kind of decide, what you want to do with the little sisters. Do you want to be a bastard? Do you want to be the saint?
Yeah, but it doesn't ultimately matter at the end.
No, well, I mean, you get that whatever ending you get depending on what you did with the little sisters. So that's also talking about it from a sense of we want a series of games to have some kind of connectivity with each other,
right?
And
right. And to be honest with you, BioShock's not really about that. It's more of just a person living. It's about the world. It's a Rapture, I think. If is it Rapture or am I thinking BioShock Infinite? I could be thinking Infinite. World.
The first one is Rapture. Yeah.
Okay, thank God. All right, I remember that portion of it at least. Yeah. So Rapture is supposed to be its own character, and you're just supposed to be migrating through it and learning its deep, dark secrets on how it's supposed to be this utopia beyond the sea, below the sea. Which, by the way, the Bobby Darin song after playing that game and seeing the trailers before it came out, totally hits on a different meaning now. It was way more sinister, and it was really well done within the realm.
I mean, that's the magic of using older songs like that to dramatic effect. It's just I think another good example of that is the movie Us, which used that I Got Five on it to very sinister effect as well for the trailers, and that's in my head comparable at least. I don't know if that's another movie you have to regretfully say you have not watched yet, but
I have not watched.
You're killing me, Smalls. But no, now that I'm finished with BioShock, I'm gonna get to BioShock 2 eventually. But I did a one.
Do you have to?
Well, Chelsea wants me to do it. She I'm thinking the aspect of playing as a big brother or a big daddy protecting a little sister might give a little bit more of the narrative that I'm looking for, or at least from a character standpoint. It's just okay, I have a purpose outside of surviving. I have to protect somebody. What is that going to cost? That's more interesting to me than just I'm either here accidentally or not because of whatever programming, which is kind of what I think that first game kind of alludes to. It's just nothing about what you've done has been preordained. It has nothing you have done has been by your choice. It's all been preordained.
Yeah. How much of a mind fuck for you was it though?
It was I think thinking about it objectively, like it's something I've seen before. So, I mean, it started clicking, and it was just like, oh, something's not right here. And when the moment you pointed out, would you kindly to me, and starting to pay attention to it in the game, it's like
Right.
why are these words repeating? Why are these words repeating? And then it's like, oh, this is probably a trigger, isn't it? And then, yeah, the spoilers for a almost 20-year-old game.
Yeah. Now, mind you, it came out like, let's say 06, 07, 08, right? So 16, 17 to 18-year-old Antonicus seeing that for the first time, going, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, no, subjectively, that's a hell of a twist, because everything you're doing is trying to get up to Ryan and stop Ryan, but it's been it was a hell of a thing to kind of just suffer through. I wouldn't say suffer through. Yeah, suffer through is probably the thing to do, because it's just like you go through the game thinking, oh, I'm doing all of these things because A, I have to survive, and B, this society is not salvageable. Everybody's gone crazy because of the decisions of one madman. From the perspective of our society, at least, it's just like, okay, you see a despot, you take down a despot, and then you find out, oh, I was a tool for that despot this whole time.
Yep, exactly.
So, from a subjective standpoint of somebody experiencing it for the first time, I get it. I get the scope of what that means, but it's also something that I've seen a couple times, so it didn't hit as hard as it probably could have.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense.
I realized my mic was not plugged in. Which is fine. I mean, I was recording the whole thing. It's the wonders of my idiocy. But now that I'm finished with BioShock, instead of going to 2, I wanted to do a little bit big blockbuster stuff. So I finally, Anthony, I want you to understand this. I finally started Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. And you've had it for like months at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be BioShock first, because I just put off BioShock for for a while now. So it was just like, I need to beat this first, because it's just been sitting too long in my docket.
That's a great distinction between you and I, by the way, because whereas you're more methodical and you're like, nope, I want to finish X before I get to Y, because ultimately here's Z. Whereas me, I'm just like, fuck all that, I'm gonna jump here. Fuck all that, I'm gonna jump to here.
Yeah, no, I think I have to do that, because it's the ADHD brain is just killer, and I've done that where it's just like, fuck it, I want to do this. No, fuck it, I want to do that. And it gets frustrating, because it's just like, I never feel like I finish anything.
Yep. So you got the ADHD brain that you're controlling, and you're forcing yourself to do 1, 2, and 3. And I just got the, the depressive mood of my own brain set. It's like, I've lost interest here. I have no interest in this world anymore. I'm just going to go here. I'm just going to go there. So, we make quite a pair is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I know. And we're a little bit more alike on that than you think, than you think, because, I mean, in addition to starting Final Fantasy VII, I also picked up and started Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes, bitch!
So I will talk about each in turn. So I joked with Anthony privately that, our podcast is like essentially the Final Fantasy VII podcast, because I kept bringing it up because A, I got a little obsessive about some of the characters, and B, on our Ludic Live sub-podcast, one of Anthony's interviewees and friends, Brian, shout out to Brian, what's up, dude? Used Cloud's story as an example, wanted to use in his conversation with Anthony, which you should all listen to, because it was very fascinating.
Yes, please rate, subscribe, review, retweet, share.
We'll give all the handles at the end, because we probably should have done that up top, but
yeah,
hey.
I thought about that as you were talking, but you know what, fuck it, we're doing it live, John.
I mean, isn't that how we always do it?
Absolutely, I would have it no other way.
Yeah, exactly. We keep people on their toes. Cue complaint. You guys need more structure.
Look, at this point, I'd like any feedback. If you want to email me me or John, or DM us at our handles that we will give you later in the show.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you should probably have them. They're in the episode description anyway, so it works out. Anyway,
what John's trying to say, loyal listeners, is learn to fucking read.
I mean, I wasn't going to be that blunt about it, but if you want me to be that blunt about it, I can.
We're going to piss off the 2 people that listen into this shit.
Or they just start laughing. Hopefully both. I don't know at this point. Anyway, games. So yeah, I did start Final Fantasy VII, and one of the things I'd want to note is that it immediately feels lived in, because it jumps you straight into the action.
Yep.
So for those folk who played the demo, the first level is essentially the demo. With a little, I think they add a little bit more scenes about what's going on with Cloud internally. Because that's a recurring thing that happens, at least in the almost 4 hours I've put into the game, where he keeps having
sad boy Cloud moments.
I wouldn't say close, but yes. Yes and no. I mean, he has these moments where he goes in like a fugue state, and he kind of dissociates from where he is in the moment to some kind of memory. So I
say it's like a Cloud 9.
Oh, Jesus Christ! No, that's only when he's hanging out with
Koopa. But I understand your confusion.
Jesus Christ, buddy.
No, but I understand your confusion.
You can't do it twice. You already corrected me once. I know you're Jesus Christ, Dad. Damn it.
I can do it twice sometimes, John. When the mood occurs it.
Sweet Lord.
No.
God damn it. I knew you were going to do it. Fucking hell, man, went crazy.
We're going to land this plane, goddammit.
We're going to land the plane.
Get off my plane.
Yeah, so the game opens up with just the assault on the Mako reactor, and it's very
the Mako, not Mako, Mako.
Yeah, it is Mako, right? I said Mako, not Mako like the actor.
I think so, but I think for the longest time, since nobody actually like the original PS1 version, I think everyone said Mako reactor.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's tomato at this point, but I mean,
wow,
I see
John, way to have non-cultural understanding. Way to just shit on.
Okay, I recant. We'll cut that in post.
You have till the end of this podcast to walk it back.
I thought I walked it back right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just said I recant. So
you have the end of the segment to walk things back.
Fair enough. So I see why the game has such popularity, because I mean you're dealing with corporate greed, corporate structure, corporate depression,
and really beautiful people.
Fucking hell, man! Like
everybody.
Anthony's not kidding, because like for one, like they put a lot of effort into the character models on at least the named characters. So the Avalanche crew, Barrett, Cloud,
not Villager A.
Not Villager, maybe one or two Villager A's and B's, but there's a lot of.
What about Villager C's and D's though?
Yeah, they're short out of luck. They didn't pass the test.
They can see D's nuts though. Oh, nailed it!
Did you do all of that just to set up a dick and ball joke?
Yes, just to set up CD's nuts. Yes, absolutely.
Oh boy. This is why I'm the straight man in this comedic duo that we are.
Well, for more than one reason, but
yeah, that's more than fair. A lot of the game's horsepower is put into the main characters, because they all look really, really good, and they animate really, really well. One of the things that I was really struck by is how lived in, and I think I might have said this already, but
I know, but I derailed you, man. I apologize.
Yeah. The game feels lived in, kind of like in the same way that Star Wars does, where it's like people have been living in this world and trying to survive, and it feels old.
You know what else feels like Star Wars? Because it's got my boy Wedge in there.
It's got a boy named Wedge in there, and this Wedge likes his pizzas.
He's a big boy, extra thick.
He's a thick boy, and very nice
multiple C's.
Like 3, maybe 4.
I think 3, 4 with an apostrophe S, obviously.
Yeah, extra anchovies.
6. Oh, I don't know about the anchovies.
I mean, I don't know. I just figured, that's a good joke to go with.
I'm just going to let you sit with that. I'm going to let you just sit with that.
That's
awful
fair.
Anchovies. That dead fish you just threw on this podcast is literally
my dead fish. My dead fish.
Yes, you're a dead fish of anchovies that you threw on this.
You've been throwing dead fish at me this whole time.
No, mine's funny. Mine are just.
We should have a poll. Just like which dead fish is funnier,
Put it on the
John's
poll.
or Anthony's?
Put it on the poll. CD's nuts or anchovies?
I know I'm going to lose. That's the disappointing part.
Absolutely, because I'm going to be the only one who votes.
Then I'll vote too, motherfucker. Back on the rails.
Land the plane.
Land the plane. Combat-wise, it's very much, it's kind of a hybrid of like a real, turn-based stuff. Only in that, you have all those menus to go through and pick stuff, and you can kind of pause combat just to select things, and then it goes back into real time once you select something. I'm still getting used to it. It's a little tricky, but it's fun to play. And honestly, the character work is very fascinating, and I think that's the thing that's really hooking me. I mean, they really lean into the whole, Tifa and Cloud have history together. Everyone jokes that it's it's romantic, but it's just like these are two people who knew each other pretty well, and now it's finding each other later in life and seeing what life has done to the other, and trying to figure out where you fit in that new version of this person and what you can do to help them if they need it. And I think that feels like Tifa in a nutshell at this point. She's very concerned about Cloud. She's very concerned about what happened to him. And Cloud honestly feels like he's playing a part.
Yep.
And I think the only person so far that sees him playing the part is Tifa, and she's calling him out on it. But everybody else just sees, okay, Merc with a big sword. We pay him enough. He's going to do what we want. But, he's clearly just putting on a show for a lot of these people. And he keeps trying to do it with Tifa, but Tifa's just like, yeah, I'm going to let you have this for a moment, but we're going to get back to this. And you're going to tell me everything I want to know right now, asshole.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate, and I appreciate that they kind of just drop you in. Because it's just like they could have, put you in at a point right before the assault on the Mako reactor, and because they allude to it. Tifa was the one that suggested Cloud join them for that assault. So the game could have easily just dumped you right there at the beginning, made all these introductions. But I think it works better because you have it forces you to pay attention. It forces you to play catch up. And to listen to what these people are saying to each other.
It gets you well more immersed into the world, and makes you give a damn about the characters in it. Yeah, and to go off my experience from the demo and now playing the full game, and full in quotes because we still have so much to still get. Like Barrett, I had thought was just very kind of a gruff asshole, and he's a tough teddy bear more than anything, I would say. I mean, there's not he hasn't, like, I'm going back to Cloud because he's the protagonist character and we're seeing everything from his perspective. Like the way I see Barrett and Cloud, it's just at this point it's just a business relationship, and the business is at the point where I'm at is concluded, so he doesn't need him. But I mean, that's not the case for everybody else. I mean, the Avalanche crew seems to want Cloud around. Especially Jesse.
Speaking of her, can we talk about how fucking horny this game is for Cloud?
Oh yeah.
Like
everyone's pretty, man.
Everyone's really fucking pretty. But like right now, at the point where I'm at, and I alluded to the whole, Tifa Cloud thing, and that's probably, and I know that's something that comes much, much later in the game, and a lot of people kind of have their own opinions about it between Cloud and Aerith and Cloud and Tifa, or all three of them as a unit, which is a newer thing, which I'm like, okay, give Tifa a girlfriend too. Great.
Absolutely. Let's do it, man.
Because honestly, it's just like protect Tifa at all costs, as far as I'm concerned. Because she's really fucking cool.
I mean, I haven't played the remake, but
but like Jesse is going for Cloud hard.
Jesse is a friend. Do. You know, Jesse is a good friend of mine.
Not even applicable.
You know, sometimes Jessie wants to get with Cloud, and she's got a special man, and she wants to make him hers.
Yeah, that works.
And he's looking at her with those eyes, and he's loving her with that sword. I just know it.
Oh, Jesus.
No.
But I understand my confusion. I get Oh, boy. You had me with the improv song, and then Jesus Christ just worked its way in.
Absolutely. That's all I'm good for. I play the notes, man. I have them on a little short leash here. They're my comfort notes.
Just like you make little trees with them too, comfort trees.
Little comfort trees. Maybe smoke those trees. Who knows? It's 2020. It's fine.
Just like Bob Ross did.
Absolutely.
So to bring it back on the rails, I kind of appreciate how aggressive she is, because it's just like, you know, if it was the other way around, it'd be weird. But I kind of appreciate that the woman is saying, "Yeah, no, I'm here for it. Let's do this."
Yeah, she knows what she likes, man. She knows what she likes. She's
just straight to the point. It's just like, you know who's not as hard as me, Cloud? Tifa. You know who won't be there for you, Tifa. I will, Cloud. You should pay attention to me, Cloud. I'm telling you the right things, Cloud.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's so far that's one of the things that's caught my attention, just because it's a fun little character thing that I just want to see where it goes.
Where's the love interest for Wedge is all I'm trying to say, man.
I thought it was the cats.
I mean, I'll take your word for it. Wedge could be all up in those pussies.
I mean, kind of is. I mean, the Wedge and Wedge. Do you want to make that / fiction? I mean, you find a way to get Star Wars into Final Fantasy, and then Wedge meets Wedge, and sparks ensue.
There could be an an X-wing fight on like another Mako reactor. You never know.
Yeah, and then they meet each other in the cockpit.
Ooh, and then they fly together.
Just managing the sticks.
Watch your six.
Jesus Christ.
No. But I understand your confusion.
I'm just gonna keep doing that so you break the joke and never get to use it.
It gets, the more I use it, the funnier it gets, because everyone's gonna get sick of it. And by everyone, I mean like the other two people listening at home at this particular moment. They're gonna get so sick of it that it's gonna come around again and become even funnier.
All right, I'll allow that. Speaking of allowing, I allowed myself to play Ghost of Tsushima as well as Final Fantasy VII. Transition.
Yes, I want to hear all about this one. Transition.
Okay. All right. I know that this generation of games has gotten to the point where it's just like almost every single game is really fucking pretty. But fucking hell, Ghost of Tsushima. The level of detail they put on that island is absolutely stunning.
You ain't lying.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much.
I know. It's just me and you time. Just look into my eyes. It's going to be okay.
Is it, though?
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
It's your fault.
John, it's not your fault.
Oh, Jesus. Don't do this.
No! But I understand your confusion.
You don't have to do it every single time.
Yes, I do, John. It's a Ludic Loungecast requirement, obviously.
Ugh.
It's going to get to the point where we have like maybe 100 followers, and then COVID's going to not be a thing. And we're going to have like a live show at some point with like 100 people. And then you're going to say like, oh, Jesus Christ. And the whole crowd, I picture my head going, no, but I understand your confusion. It's going to be a beautiful thing.
I hope to be there that day it happens.
I hope so too.
I hope so too. Back to pretty Japan. the game so far, I think I'm a couple hours in at this point. It's a hell of an opening because it just charges you straight into the battle, and it goes to shit quick. And it's just it
Goes to shit Shima.
Oh God, that was bad.
I know.
That was bad.
I'll file that one. I have to the end of the segment to take it back. I'm going to take that one back.
That is fair. That is more than fair. So you play as a samurai lord named Jin Sakai, who is a nephew to the lord of the island, and the driving point of the game at this point is to save your uncle from the grandson of Genghis Khan. Khotan Khan is this guy's name.
Khotan Khan?
I think my memory is fuzzy on that. He's Kublai Khan's son.
Kupa Khan's? What about Shaka Khan? Is that his nephew too?
No,
Like a
no,
cousin?
Anthony. You're just being bad. You're being bad. You're being bad, and we're on a schedule.
Khan!
You killed my son.
How did you leave off your Shatner impression like a few episodes ago when we were ranking your impressions?
Because I don't do Shatner all that often.
But when you do, man, it just hits.
Thank you for that compliment. It's not all the time I bring out the Shat. Spock, sabotage the system. Spock, radiate the defenses. Spock, where were you? Spock. Oh God, this is gonna be like the second coming of Jesus Christ.
I mean, it might be. I was about to say, like, Mr. Spock, bring up the shades because they didn't call it shields for a while.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they called it like shades or something like that. I was watching. I was watching TOS. They didn't call it shades. They were like, yeah, or they didn't call it shields. It's like, yeah, bring up the shades. They said some shit like that. I don't know if it was exactly shades, but it was not shields. My mind was fucked when I watched that. I was like, what the fuck is this?
I'm gonna have to look that up then. So, like, gameplay wise, it feels, it's from the creators of Infamous. So there's a little bit of kind of the free running, climbing stuff that they're known for. They also did Sly Cooper, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my memory was correct. So there is a little bit, kind of a platforming, scaling stuff aspect to it. So they split it to the whole samurai ninja thing, where it's just like, you can either confront everybody head on like a samurai would, or the more honorable path, or the more sneaky path, which is you're observing more, you're assassinating, you're doing silent tactics to kind of work your way through an objective.
Which, not to spoil anything, because I actually don't even know how it goes, but from what I've heard, that comes into play like towards end game stuff and like that, like a morality system.
I mean, I haven't really seen how it impacts things so far. I'm still very early on, so it's kind of hard to say. I'm going to have to take your word on it for right now and report back when I get through the game. Right now, the morality system kind of feels just like unimportant at the moment, at least from my perspective, because at this point you're just kind of scoping around trying to recruit allies so you can have an assault on the Mongol fortress. So it's just kind of wandering this island trying to doing samurai shit, which is rad because part of the inspiration of the game comes from a favorite comic book of mine, Usagi Yojimbo by Stan Sakai, who our protagonist is named after.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, I was reading that from some of the Sucker Punch guys were saying that Usagi Yojimbo was a big inspiration, and out of honor to Stan Sakai, they named their protagonist after him, to tie it back to the whole, the Kurosawa Yojimbo thing that Sakai is also referencing, because Kurosawa is you can't think samurai movies without thinking Kurosawa.
Absolutely.
I mean, they have a Kurosawa mode in this game. where it is black and white.
The
It is
noir.
it is black and white in Japanese with English subtitles. You have the option to play the game in Japanese, fully subtitled.
God, that's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, and what's even cooler is that the Mongols don't speak Japanese. They're speaking. You hear them speak Mongolian.
That is amazing. That's a great attention to detail, man.
This game was clearly very well researched. I will defer to any kind of expert that does listen or ever does listen, on how accurate it is. But to this layman's eyes, at least, with whatever, limited experience I have through books and film and comics, it feels genuine and it feels accurate to the period. I know that, like, one thing that isn't accurate is I don't think katanas were as prevalent at the time that this game is occurring. But they're also the more publicly aware item. So it's just like, we can't give him we can't make him use a different kind of sword because no one's going to know what it is. Everyone recognizes a katana. We have to give him a katana.
I mean, you gotta make small sacrifices like that.
It's and at the end of the day, even though it's based on a historical event, it is still a fictional story. So you have the ability to take a little bit of leeway, but not so much that it breaks everything. But that's what I've been playing so far. I'll probably be jumping back to Final Fantasy VII once we're off podcast for a little bit. Because I did a big chunk of Tsushima yesterday, and that's the other thing, is that the game teaches you how to pronounce the fucking island's name. So it's not Tsushima, it's Tsushima.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think my plan is I'll work through the game because I'm playing it in English right now. I'll probably go through a second time with it and maybe in Kurosawa mode or maybe just in Japanese. With the English subtitles, just so I get that experience and see how it feels in comparison, because I don't know if it's the same voice actors speaking in Japanese or not. So I'll report back on that when I get there. But moving on to movies, the one that I'd like to talk about at this juncture is a rewatch of mine of an old favorite, and it's going to kind of serve as an honorable mention for our later topic. I watched the Keanu Reeves Constantine.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So this movie came out in 2005. It is based off of the DC Comics character John Constantine, co-created by Alan Moore. Funny enough. Yeah. Those are for the people at home who don't know. Alan Moore is one of the big names in the comic book industry who unfortunately was a little mistreated, but a lot mistreated by DC when it came to one of his big claims to fame, Watchmen.
He's also super crazy, so you give and you take.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally a wizard. He does weird shit. He can be cranky sometimes, but the industry kind of made him that way, so it's justifiable. But he is a weird dude. But he's also an incredible writer. John Constantine was created in the pages of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore and was a cult detective, I think is kind of like the easiest way to describe him. But he was also blonde and British. Physically, I think he was based off Sting.
Yeah, pretty sure. Makes a lot.
And he had a famous comic called John Constantine Hellblazer, which was one of the big Vertigo comics. So it was one of the first adult kind of focused comics that DC started putting out in like the mid to late 80s. I believe it was always kind of like lobbed around for like development in Hollywood. And it finally got a shot as a Keanu Reeves movie in 2005. And Keanu Reeves is not blonde and British and not Sting.
Not at all.
and the movie moved the action to L.A. and it's Hellblazer is one of my blind spots, so I don't really know where the comic takes place. My experience, Constantine is a little bit of a wanderer. So it's just like he goes from London to the U.S. to wherever, whoever calls him, he goes. but the Constantine movie is very much an LA movie. And it's, hodgepodging a lot of, big Hellblazer stories, John getting cancer and stuff like that. But honestly, I think it's one of the best creative adaptions of a DC character. And it shows that, you don't have to do a one-to-one adaptation to get something good.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was well received, if it actually made money.
I believe it did not. It's gotten a lot of cult favoritism not as in like a cult really has said we like this movie because it you get what I mean. Cult in the term of Hollywood.
Yeah, it's to the point now where they're actually seriously talking about doing a sequel to it. I just read that like as recently as a couple days ago.
Yeah, there's a couple rumors flinging about now that HBO Max is essentially AT&T and Warner Brothers is Netflix. There's a lot of DC property talk kind of floating around that. So there might be some kind of TV show, might be some kind of movie about Keanu Reeves as John Constantine, but
with COVID again, like everything's up in the air at this point.
Yeah, and a little tip when you're looking at Hollywood news like this, if the trades are reporting it, and by trades I mean stuff like the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, magazines like that, if they're reporting the news of these things, that's more likely a sign that it is something that is officially happening in some shape or form. The downside of a lot of a lot of news sources these days is that anybody can kind of create a rumor and it kind of becomes news fact as it kind of goes through the social media engine. We're seeing that at the time of this recording, we're seeing that a little bit with news about Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian getting a Disney Plus TV show. That was reported by like some nerd site with like 6,000 followers saying, "Oh yeah, it's gonna happen," and everybody's kind of taking it at its word. But I checked the trades and not a peep.
Yeah.
So
there is still some sense of journalism.
Yeah.
Like even though today everyone's a Twitter journalist, like the big brands like you just mentioned, they still have to do their checks and rechecks and things like that before they just put shit out into the ethos. So yeah.
So I mean, to keep it short, so we can get into the meat of today's topic, Constantine. It didn't spark people back in 2005. I think if it had come out probably 5 years later, post Supernatural, post the MCU boom, I think that movie would have had a lot more legs.
Especially the Supernatural.
Especially that. Because like Supernatural like started that same year. And I mean, you're already coming off of, because like the CW and the WB already had Buffy, before that. But,
right.
And Buffy and Supernatural are almost, in the Venn diagram of those two shows, it's almost a circle.
Yeah.
But, I think what Constantine is definitely within the vibe of Supernatural, and I think the Supernatural fandom out there would take to that version of Constantine in a heartbeat, because it's easy to see him up against not up against Sam and Dean, but standing alongside him, because
I was gonna say you could take out Constantine, put Sam and Dean, and it's a Supernatural episode or a series, like season right there.
Like you could turn the Constantine movie into like the big Supernatural finale movie, and I think it would still work to an extent. Because you have a very young Shia LaBeouf or Shia LaBeouf. I call him LaBeouf just because he's a little weird, and I like to just poke at it. Rachel Weisz is in it. Yeah, I mean,
a little boofy.
Yeah, a little boofy. That is bad. File that.
No, that one I like. That one,
and I laughed at it, so it counts.
Yeah. Too late you came.
Yep, pretty much. Rachel Weisz is in it, and I love Rachel Weisz. She's anytime I see her in a movie, she's always good.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree.
Yeah. Tilda Swinton's also playing an angel in this, and I think this movie is also like my favorite interpretation of Lucifer. Because like I just enjoy the way the guy who plays him, Peter Stormare. I just think he's fun to watch, and it's what he does as Lucifer is just like, yeah, I enjoy this. This is fun. You're making it fun.
You know, Tilda Swinton. This was my first really. I remember because again, this came out in 2005, so I didn't know jack shit about jack shit. Right, I was 15 years old and I was young, dumb, and full of cum. But Tilda Swinton was the first time I was like, huh, she kind of reminds me of Bowie. Which in my mind was saying like an androgynous kind of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of my first awakening into that realm of, into that sphere of alternative lifestyles and et cetera. So I guess that's just a fun fact. It has no merit of what you're saying, but just a fun fact.
No. And that's it's Tilda Swinton's bread and butter. She likes to kind of, play the line and it allows her to play a lot of interesting parts that, if she was a lot more feminine looking, she probably wouldn't get it because that's just how Hollywood works. They don't want to give.
She doesn't need to, man. Like, she's great. She's great in, like, everything she did. Even with all the backlash in Doctor Strange, I mean, she still did an excellent job.
Yeah. I think, we'll save my opinions on that because I have a very particular opinion on Doctor Strange because because it's a very personal thing and it helped me with a lot of things at the time. But I agree. I think she's serviceable in that part, but there's a lot of larger concerns that
Yes, no, I
a larger discussion.
Agree. Yeah, I 100% agree with that larger discussion that should be had. Ergo,
she's still good.
Still good.
Yeah.
Albeit, I probably should have said albeit.
Yeah, that's fine. So with that, to lead us into our DC positive movie talk, that way we don't shit on DC all the fucking time because
they do some good stuff or did some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, it's all relative. I mean, you take what you will from each of those projects. Like I was reading earlier today, that somebody was commenting on the Snyder cut of Justice League and how it's kind of going to stand alone from everything that kind of comes out. So it seems like whatever Snyder's doing is going to kind of pivot into its own universe and keep its fingers out of what's going on in the larger DC line. I mean, I'm not sure. It seems like DC is really leaning into we have a multiverse, so let's just kind of keep everybody kind of segmented.
So for those of you listening at home, because this isn't a fucking video format, which I just remembered, I flipped off the camera because of what John said about these pretentious Snyderites that are just like, it's its own thing, man. It's its own. It's going to be a new sensation that you've never seen Justice League before. It's like, dude, fuck off. Like, come on. You had your chance. You fucked it over. Like, just move forward.
But what gets me is that they believe that that's the only valid interpretation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Fuck off, dude. Like, go read a fucking book. Like, I'm not the biggest comic reader. I am the first to wholeheartedly admit that. But even myself, with the minute experience dabbling in the comic book world, I'm like, yeah, this shit's not right, man. That doesn't make sense.
No, and I think that's why some of the things that we're going to talk about is an example of why those Snyder era films don't necessarily 100% work because they miss something crucial. Yep. So how are we going to do this? You want to trade, I do one, you do one, and then we'll just trade off?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. So I can keep going with the honorable mentions, and because I just have, Constantine counts as an honorable mention because it's DC related, and Constantine has showed up in some DC stuff on the CW. So there's precedent to see, Constantine in some kind of DC movie. He's a member of the Justice League Dark, which is the Justice League that deals with the weird shit. So John Constantine's likely to appear in that. So Constantine is an honorable mention. The other two honorable mentions I'd like to make are Shazam and Birds of Prey. And I know that they're the newer ones, but I think that with Shazam, it really shows the magic side of the DC universe and how that can get a little bit, grand. And it's something that, that feels different than what Marvel has shown so far on the magic side. And I think it shows the heart of what DC can be, which is, a lot of found family stuff and a lot of big picture, kindness. That's what I think DC can really benefit from, is that at the end of the day,
the whole feeling that a man truly can fly, like that, just awe-inspiring. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I know Zachary Levi, and just off of our discussions, they give you that kind of awe back into the DCU.
I agree. It's just heart and kindness. That's what I feel like, DC needs to lean into. And I think Shazam does a good job of that while also being very, very fun. And it's honestly similar with Birds of Prey. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a kind movie like Shazam is. It's a very aggressive movie because, it's essentially about, a psychotic criminal, which is Harley Quinn, but Harley's trying to turn herself around after, figuring out, I don't need the Joker necessarily to complete my life. I can do that with the things I do for myself. Yeah. And it also shows you can do a movie in Gotham without, relying on Batman.
Yep.
Or relying completely on that inner circle he has. Yep. Because there's no, there's a character that is a Batgirl in the comics, but she's completely different. So it's removed.
Yeah. So, I mean, John, you could probably agree with me. I think there are certain issues within that movie, Birds of Prey, more particular, because I saw it as well, so I can actually speak to this. But overall, for what it's trying to do, the main theme of it, I feel like it did its job. Yeah. Now, am I going to sit here and say that it's the best movie of all time for DC? No, I'm not going to sit here and try to claim that. Do I think it had some great ideas? Absolutely. Do I think it wasted Ewan McGregor? Absolutely. But
I disagree.
No, dude, he was wasted in that film.
No, he was not. I think he had honestly, I think he brought a lot of nuance to Roman Sionis. I think that
he was good, but they wasted him in that movie. Like he could have been something more and grander. He did a great job as I guess I shouldn't spoil it. But he did a great job for his character, but he could have been something bigger, and they could have built something around like him being the main big bad for a trilogy or a saga.
Okay. I see in that sense, yes, I agree. It's and that's something I think we can talk to on a larger scale about most superhero movies, DC especially. Marvel is not innocent of this as well. They keep killing off these fucking villains, and it's just like I want and spoilers for Birds of Prey. That's something I have with that movie. It's just like I do agree. I wish that they kind of did set up Black Mask as a more recurring villain.
Yeah, like if they just tossed him in jail or beat him to a pulp and then had the authority, like somebody take over, like have Batman or somebody just come in and haul his ass off, I'd be cool with it. But the fact that they, spoiler, killed his ass off, I'm like, dude, like there you go. Like you could have a Black Mask arc in a Batman, whatever have you. He could have been a minor B villain or a main A villain. Like there's so much you could have done there.
Yeah, and that's something that just recurs throughout. I mean, so many of at least like the Batman movies, at first it was just like they were killing villains off left and right. So it's just like you don't get that recurrence that happens in the comics. But I guess the way movies are built, and at least were at that time, I guess people think that killing is the be all end all ultimate end, instead of like letting a phase end, taking some time and seeing what the next one is in regard to that particular villain. I don't know. Maybe it's something that has to do with audience tastes, and it's something that's a little beyond me. But
now again, I know we're spending some time dunking and trying to explain what DC, but honestly, it's a great movie. I had a great time watching it. I really like Harley Quinn's kind of tightrope she walked on psychotic, and then using like psychological terms to describe people. I thought that was a nice little fun quirk she did. Overall, I can see why it's an honorable mention. It's been a very good bright spot in some of the darker crap that DC put out.
Yeah, it's like the reason I mentioned Shazam and Birds of Prey is like I want more DC movies like that. Yeah, it's like that this is where they should be putting their time and effort and expanding upon. less overly dark shit like Snyder's, work, less like the Joker, which, I haven't seen Joker. I don't really plan to, but it seems like it's just, drama for the sake of Oscar bait, and it doesn't appeal to me. But that's just me. I won't stop anybody from seeing it. And
yeah, well, that's where I'm going to jump in for an honorable mention and say Joker.
Mhm.
I think that I understand what you're mentioning. I understand that a lot of the people who took the message and ran with it are probably some people that shouldn't have, people who are already in position of power,
Mhm.
white males who are saying, yeah, we feel oppressed like he was. Yeah, no, man. Like, if you actually watch the story of Joker and watch the slow decline of Arthur Blank?
Fleck.
Arthur Blank was totally different character.
Yeah.
Arthur Fleck, and watch his demise and watch how the society around him led to some of the things that could have happened, and see if one little thing here was changed or one little thing there was changed, how that could have been different. If you actually watch the character and I'm not trying to sit here and say like, oh yeah, I totally see why the Joker became a psychopath that killed everybody. I'm not going to say that. What I will say is that a lot of the Joker reflects a lot of society, especially those parts of society we don't want to talk about that can lead to some bad characters, such as the impact of mental health, and albeit the lack of mental health for people that actually need it, that, are on that cusp where if they don't get help, they can turn into violent offenders, or not just violent, but any sort of criminal offenders or anything of that knowledge.
Yeah.
I think it was very well done. Joaquin Phoenix, like, at times just scared the holy fuck out of me. And I mean that to the highest honorary degree, because he does a damn good job on it. Honestly, if you take this outside of this being a DC film and just say it's a psychotic, a character falling to psychoses and going on and becoming like a serial killer, if you just leave the Joker out of it, I think you have a very different film, a very different feel of a film, such as like Taxi Driver and some of those older films where you have a similar kind of a plot line. And it could rival some of those things and bring some sort of discussion around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably the best way to view Joker, but it's just like, I think that it's like the Snyder movies. I think the discourse around that movie has become so polluted by try-hard bros who think that it's, this movie about a guy who dresses up as a clown is the most important thing in the world. Yeah. And that, it's just like, these are supposed to be metaphors for things, but it's not meant to be realistic. It's meant to be sensational so that it can teach you something or entertain or sometimes do both. So I think that if we had discourse like you're talking about for Joker, I think that would be something that's insanely important, because we need to standardize those conversations. Yeah. But I just like nerddom is just, and fandom just become just poisoned by like vitriol and aggression sometimes. But I mean, but that's besides the point. We need to stay positive on DC.
Yes. So for a positive honorable mention, John, I will challenge you and say, if you stop thinking of it as a DC movie and look on the grasp of like a Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro or something of that similar mindset, and if you take it and don't think of it as the movie being called The Joker, think of it as called like the comedy or something like
the laugher.
Something like that. And if you look at it from that realm, I think you would actually enjoy this film. And enjoy I use with like not like a haha good time, but like a ooh, I'm uncomfortable.
Okay, I'll consider it. So moving on to our top 3, because we don't want to do a super rockin' top 5.
Fair enough.
So do you want me to kick it off, or you want to kick it off?
One more honorable mention, because you mentioned 2 in 1, I will say is the film that came out around the mid 2000s, and that would be Watchmen, for another one of my honorable mentions. I think it's a damn good adaptation from the graphic novel. I think the changes that they made from graphic novel to cinematic universe made sense for it. If you feel like it takes away some of the major themes of it, I understand your point. But I think to fit in today's realm and today's cinematic universe. I feel like, because yes, Watchmen was a DC vehicle. It is technically a part of DC universe.
Yeah.
I feel like it did a damn good adaptation. I feel like it was really the first movie, because I saw it, again, I must have been 17, 18, however have you, maybe close to my 20s when watching it. So it was the first movie, and again, I read the graphic novel, so I understood it, but seeing it in the universe and seeing it paired with the graphic novel, it actually made me think of themes that maybe I don't think about every day. It made me think of themes about greater discord about society as a whole and what that looks like, and how change is made, how change can be made, and at times how force can make changes within society, amongst a plethora of other themes inside of the book and movie. So that's just an honorable mention for me. Very well done. Everyone who played their roles was great. And again, killer soundtrack. Like, totally just soundtrack made everything better for me.
Yeah. Watchmen, like, my taste on it has changed. I think that the ending I think like the major change is like the ending between the book and the film, because it's a little bit kind of a non sequitur what happens in the book, and it, to do that in a movie would kind of be mean. But I mean, like, I just worry that, we mentioned that in the last episode, Zack Snyder repeatedly misses the point on a lot of these books. So it's just like, I wonder how much of your affection for the themes behind the book and the discussions of it in the movie, come out of the book. But I mean, I think that's a larger discussion for us to have outside of this top three.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, because a lot of those things are kind of mirrored and a lot of those things kind of clouded. Like, I wholeheartedly agree, but for being a film adaptation, this is one thing where I give Snyder, I'll give him the nod, because it was almost word for word, almost panel for panel at times, and I give him the nod, man. It was well done. But unfortunately gave him the ego to just kind of dunk on and just crap out a lot of the future things that he touched.
Yeah. So you give and you take a little. That's about it.
Yep.
That's the way. But
now, John, give me one of your top threes.
So
transition.
My approach to this top three is less of a 3, 2, 1, and more of a, here is the 3 DC movies that kind of serve to introduce you to the universe or its specific characters. And looking at these movies, it sucks to say how kind of limited they are, because it's just only in maybe the last 10 years we've gotten into something that is not Batman and or Superman. But I think for my first one, and Anthony, I think this might be one of yours. I don't know if it's your third, but I'm going to bring it to Wonder Woman, because I think.
Yep, absolutely.
I think for one reason, Wonder Woman is a cultural touchstone, I think, at this point, because it is the first female superhero movie that is helmed by a female director, or just a director who happens to be a woman. Not to put any qualifiers on that, because Patty Jenkins is a capital D director, period.
Absolutely. Again, this would, like, if we were to rank, again, John and I are going in the mindset we're not ranking, we're just bringing these 3 films into light and talking about them. But if I were to rank, this would be number 1 with a bullet, honestly, for me personally. Again, it brings, not only for what you just mentioned, John, for the behind the scenes role, but it was one of the first times in film, not just comic book film, but film in general, where you see a strong female protagonist who isn't just dependent on anyone, but she utilizes the people around her to get to a goal, to help with a goal. She's not dependent on a person. She's utilizing, like you see in any other great movie, she's utilizing people around her while learning about their world, while learning about what makes them tick as a society, as different cultures within the society, and using all of these multicultural, well, to a degree, multicultural characters. She's using them to understand and help make the world a better place. And again, that's that bright spot, that hope, like you said, heart and hope.
Yeah. And that's something that, the Diana as a character is, she is the embodiment of love and kindness, I think, in the DC universe. If you look at like how we kind of trioize lead characters. Like the one example is, Star Trek that pops in my head. You have Spock on one end of the triangle being the purely logical, no emotional side. You have McCoy on the other side being the very emotional perspective. And then at the top of the triangle, you have Kirk, who is a mix of logic and emotion. And you can arguably say the same principle applies to the DC trinity of Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman, with Batman being purely logical, Superman being the emotional guy, and Wonder Woman coming at the to bring them together in balance. And I think that's what this movie was trying to do. I don't know if it necessarily succeeds, but it's an admirable attempt. I'm not the biggest fan of the third act of the movie because it falls into what I'm calling the Snyder trap, because it just it turns into this kind of bland, colorless final fight, which you look at Zack Snyder's work, with his immediate directing work, and it just that's what is reflected in those final acts of his movies. It becomes just a giant fist fight with black backgrounds, and it feels heavy, it's dreary. But
the one thing I will say about the third act is the scene you have with Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Doing what he did to make sure that not only the world, but make sure that Diana could actually accomplish her goal and be the person she needs to be.
And
God, that was great.
Yeah, and in their relationship, in part, they work so well together, Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. And that's the skill of Chris Pine. I think he's better suited as a supporting actor rather than a lead actor. And I think and their relationship, honestly, is something I wish would kind of be applied to when it's a male protagonist, female supporting character, because you never feel that Diana and Steve are unequal in any way. I don't think. I think there are things that Steve can do that Diana can't, and there's obviously things Diana can do that Steve can't. But it's never a dividing. It never feels like a dividing point to me.
No, it feels like a learning experience for
exactly
both, right? Chris Pine, because again, it takes place in the 1920s to 30s.
It's
early teens, right? Because
it's like I think it's 1918, so it's like towards the end of the First World War.
Yeah. So, and again, at that point in time, if you want to talk about women's suffrage, you want to talk about all those things, it's again a time where American society, hell, even the global society, still had themes that were not of equal sex. It was still, for sure, all men are created equal. There were still, women were second to third class citizens, and just how Wonder Woman takes that, twists it on its head, and you see the vehicle of change that America could be through Chris Pine. As first he's kind of like rigid, not understanding, not liking that role, and then gradually understands, and they both learn from each other, and he learns that, hey, my position's kind of a shitty position.
Yeah. And this, as little as Gal Gadot got in Batman versus Superman, she was able to make the character sing. Here she soars, and it's very much she doesn't, in the hands of a lesser director, I think, or a male director, they would have played Diana as very childish and naive. And I think the benefit of having a woman at the helm is that while Diana is naive about the world outside of her home, she's not a child. She's not stupid. She's just she's still she's trying to figure out how this world is working differently than hers.
She's not helpless.
Yeah. And she's able to call out the facts in our world where it is arbitrary male dumb bullshit. That scene in that war cabinet is a prime example of that. And to bring it to, I think the iconic moment of that movie is the no man's land scene.
Man, that's a powerful scene.
That honestly, I think it's comparable to another movie that I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about, the first Chris Reeve helicopter scene in that first Superman movie, the big reveal, as you were, of the hero, when they earn their colors. As far as I'm concerned, it's a stunning piece of the movie. It's a stunning piece of pop culture. I think that's something that's going to come to define the character, decades after we're all gone. And that's why I think it's important to talk about it. And it also is a perfect a summary of Diana's character. She's going to keep pushing and use the people around her to fight for what is right in her heart. And what more can be said than that?
And talking about more of a societal impact, it also introduced a lot of people to the concept of and I know that seems kind of vague, but what I want to hone in on is, a lot of the times people think that, okay, well, strong female protagonists have to either be strong, but they have to be ugly. They can be pretty, but they have to be dumb. They can be, and there was that either or, but it really brought to the forefront, like, no, this is an and situation. She is a gorgeous woman, and yet she has courage. She has strength. She has character. She's not a ditzy, just pretty face on the screen. She has depth. It brings this concept to where it made people, at least I hope it got a lot of people to think about, like, yeah, hey, women are complex, just like society is complex. I am a man. I know my things, and I'm a complex person. It brought it to a sense it's not either one thing or the other. It's this concept of and I know I probably shit on that in my head to sound a lot better, but it's this concept of you can be multiple things and yet still be one whole thing.
Exactly. And I think that, we kind of hit two birds with one stone, since Wonder Woman is both on our lists. Anthony, what's yours?
The next thing I want to move on, touch on, I should say. I feel like I'm going to skip over one of these because you mentioned it already. So I'll leave Superman on the table because we're going to probably talk about number 1 and number 2. I have a feeling. I want to talk about 89 Batman.
Okay.
And how it made my list. Now, looking back, like I said, I was, to be fully transparent, I was fighting between Watchmen and 89 Batman. And I was like, well, do I just have nostalgic goggles on 89 Batman? Is it just a simple black and white movie? Like, is it just a simple movie that I'm not thinking about that had deeper meaning? Is it just nostalgia? And then I really thought about it and thought about it some more. No, 89 Batman, what I love about it is, yes, I have the nostalgia factor. Yes, some parts of it are silly, like the whole Prince soundtrack, kind of silly.
The fact that it is clear, the more you look at it, the more obvious it is just a giant set.
Yeah, kind of silly. But where you have kind of like the silly Prince aspects of it, you have the Danny Elfman score, which, I mean, is amazing and was really the first time, again, like, I knew John Williams, Star Wars, but for me, it went John Williams, Star Wars, and went Danny Elfman, 89 Batman, as far as, like, orchestral, grandiose music that is played with a movie. And it was really, again, along with Star Wars, it was really the first time I thought about music in a movie setting and how music can take a character, take a film, and really crank it up to this great, iconic level. Michael Keaton, again, I can talk days and days about Michael Keaton in the role. Not only is he... Yeah, exactly. And we have before. Michael Keaton, not as only is he iconic for the role of Batman, not because he's just like, he looked great in the suit. No, he actually brought depth. I mean, the whole arc with Vicky Vale trying to finally, like, hey, maybe I should let somebody in. I'm lonely. I've been doing this. Again, it didn't really say how long, but you got the sense, like, I've been doing this a long fucking time and I'm lonely. And at the end of the day, I want to share my world with somebody. I want to bring somebody in. And you got to see, and it wasn't always through dialogue. Some of it was with, Alfred, who did a great job in the role and everything of that nature. But a lot of it was nonverbal. A lot of it was kind of like the brooding scenes in the cave as he's reading over newspaper clippings. Mm-hmm. It was, reflecting off Jack Nicholson as the Joker, who really super iconic in the role. They let him chew the scenery. They let him and say, hey, Jack, you do Jack, man. Like, this is the character. This is what we're going for. Go for it. And again, at this point, the only Joker we had was, the 66 Batman, and the Batman comics, which was, the Cesar Romero, like,
Yep.
oh, you found boobs, kind of a
Yes,
Joker.
Batman, yes.
Excellent. God, you got so many impressions, man. It's
That's
impressive.
all I can do for Cesar Romero, and that's about it.
Oh, I like your Frank Gorshin, though. God, give me a little bit of Riddler.
Riddle me this, Batman.
God, you're the man. Holy shit. God, it made me lose my train of thought. Where Jack, they let him chew the scenery.
Are you trying to get ahead?
Why don't you have voiceover work, John? At this, honestly, why
I'm
don't
not
you
an
have-
actor, man. I'm not an actor. I'm just some
Yes,
schmuck
you
who
are,
can do
goddammit.
impressions. No.
Anyway, it let Jack be Jack, and it brought the Joker to the more sinister role. It let people know, like, oh, it's not just this funny clown guy who says bad puns and, tries to stop a mild-mannered, Batman. No, this is a sinister character that, again, one of the spookiest scenes, and John laughs at me every time, is the scene where he fries the holy shit out of his former mob boss.
Ooh, I got a live one here.
You're my number one guy. And for the longest time, I thought he said, you're my number one and I, and just left it at that. And I was like, that's fucking weird. But then John told me he finishes that sentence with the word guy instead.
Because he's making fun of he's making fun of a character from earlier in that movie.
Yeah. So again, it was silly. There were silly moments, many silly things, but it also, its seriousness and what it brought to what comic book movies could be, and not just movies, what comic books could be in general. It's iconic, and that's why I had to put it on the top 3, and why it ultimately beat out Watchmen. Yeah. So that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go counterpoint to your 89 Batman, and I think I'm gonna have to, reluctant as I am to do it because I haven't revisited it in a while, I'm gonna have to say Batman Begins, because I think that, like, as much as I love the Tim Burton Batman movies, and I almost put Batman Returns, but I think for Batman Returns, I love the idea of what it could have been had they gone a little bit differently with it.
Fair.
Because like if the original plan, I think, was to have Billy D. Williams reprise his Harvey Dent role, and he would serve as the Max Schreck of that movie, and.
Right.
And that brings up a little bit more interesting questions about duality, because then you'd be setting up Two-Face, and you're dealing with, Bruce and his duality, Selina and her duality, Penguin and society's duality with him, where he stands in it and all that stuff. But the movie as it stands, it has some of that, but I think I wish it could have fleshed. There was a possibility for them to flesh it out more, and they just didn't do it.
You see, I agree with the duality portion. I agree that would have been a great story plot, a great story arc, if you will, for that movie. But this is an example of Tim Burton being fucking Tim Burton. The Penguin character is a well-renowned gangster character who just so happens to be short and just so happens to be, this minute stature and pudgy.
And has a fondness for birds.
And has a fondness for birds. And again, I've always pictured him in that mobster role, just like in Batman the Animated Series. And again, this isn't to slight Danny DeVito. Again, you're given what you're given when you're an actor, and you got to do the best you can within it. But it just showed that Tim Burton, and I'm on record off the mic, but I'll say it on the mic, that I'm not the biggest Tim Burton fan. Outside of the 89 Batman, that's about all my Tim Burton likes.
Yeah, I'm about the same. It's the 2 Batman films and probably Nightmare Before Christmas, but that's just him.
Even then, honestly, dude, you can toss that shit out of here when it comes to
and it's not even a movie he directed. He just created the concept.
Yeah, he just created the creepy ass fucking shit in it.
I mean, you're verging on something that I wanted to talk about Burton specifically. As much as I love those 2 Keaton Burton Batman movies, I think at the end of the day, they're not about Batman. He's just there. Burton is more interested in the villains than he is in Batman. It's by virtue of what Keaton does with what he's given that I think that, the version of Batman there works. but ultimately they're just movies that Batman are in. They're not necessarily about him as a person. I think that, and that's why I didn't put the 66 Batman movie, because I think that the Adam West Batman movie is a prime example of what Batman was, not who he is. You know, it's like, if you want the purest absolute distillation of Batman with no other frills to it, you go to 66, because it's literally just one-to-one with what Batman was at the time. You know, that's, I think, the best way to kind of get the motivation or just how the character works in practice, not necessarily motivation, because the show that show doesn't have the time to get into it, because they're more concerned about entertaining and solving crime.
Yeah, and it's 60s television. There wasn't like in depth, like it was. You had your sitcoms, you had your small little tidbits here, you had your serials, you started having your soap operas, and so it tried to shove all of those genres into its own creative thing.
Yeah, and worked very well for a period of time. I leave full, and we limited this to the live action ones, because if we had leeway for the animated DC movies,
this would be a whole different list. Yeah,
it would be a completely different list, because the animated movies are probably a little bit more in line to the aspect of the heart of the characters, because especially with Batman, because I don't think the movies have gotten him 100% right ever.
I agree. Not 100% to the T of what the character is.
Yeah, I think
I agree.
I think Wonder Woman does. I think some of the Chris Reeve movies do. But I feel like out in live action Batman, outside of Adam West, which is a very distinct example of Batman during a certain period of his existence, the live action movies have failed to represent Batman properly. Yeah. And that includes Batman Begins, but I think Batman Begins is the closest thing to representing, here's how Batman works.
And how Batman begins.
Yeah. It's literally, if you want to understand how he starts, and if you want an explanation for every fucking thing, this is your movie. I don't necessarily think you need the explanation, where he gets all his shit and why he does it, because it ultimately just you could start nitpicking all that stuff.
Sure.
But in context of here's what happens to this kid, here's what this kid goes through, here's his decision making, here's why he leaves, here's why he comes back. I think it's the best depiction of the murder, because it in my head now, it feels like it's the one time it feels like it's trying to be a de-escalation rather than an escalation. And this is based off of my memory is fuzzy on the 89 depiction. I imagine it's probably in line with what Frank Miller had created, or at least Frank Miller's interpretation. And we talked ad nauseum about Batman versus Superman, and how that one is very much bro aggressive, because the shooting happens when Thomas throws a punch. Right. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but and that's also a failure of the movie, because I don't think Bruce or Batman realizes he could de-escalate as well. And that's the one thing the one issue I have with the movie is I don't think he should have let Ra's al Ghul die. I think that, the whole of that movie is Bruce trying to come to terms with his relationship with his parents, specifically his father. And he uses, Liam as a...
By the way, Linus Roach as Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
Holy shit, did such a great job. And I know you're going to touch upon that a little bit, but
yeah,
great job to the team, man.
Absolutely. I think, this is a fault of Christopher Nolan, where, you don't really get much with Bruce's mom. And that's just, par for the course for Nolan. He doesn't do particularly well with female characters, when they're present at all.
Yeah, that's fair.
But, in Begins, Bruce is replacing Thomas with Henry Ducard, Liam Neeson, who we later learn is Ra's al And it's a cool inversion of what it is, what the relationship with Ra's al Ghul typically is in the books and other multimedia, where it is him trying to force Bruce into, a son-in-law position. Essentially, I need you to be my son because I can't pass this on to women or to my daughter. If you remove that initial thing at first, from the onset, you get is this man my replacement father? And if this man is my replacement father, what does that mean for the man I want to be?
Yeah.
And I think that, what I would have liked to have seen is that he embraced his father being the healer, being the doctor, being the de-escalator. Yeah. Exactly. And it's just like, he may not have to kill him, but I can still save you and still put you away. Because, what you're doing is the exact opposite of what I should be doing, which is trying to heal.
Instead, it turns into, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the one thing I could probably, outside of like the whole explanation of where he gets everything, is the one caveat to Batman Begins. I think if you want a great live action distillation of the character of Batman, that's the best way to do it. And I think, with Christian Bale, doing the whole, Patrick Bateman, Bruce side, and, being a very serious guy to begin with, it fits what I always kind of pictured Bruce to be. When it's obviously an act when he's out in public, but then the moment he's alone with Alfred in the cave, he is gung-ho, 100% focused.
Yeah. And it's like, Rachel says in that film, like, no, Bruce Wayne's the mask you wear. This is your actual face. And again, you could talk about Dark Knight, its sequel, right? The second movie, and it could be up there for an honorable mention but the reason I left it out, Heath Ledger makes that movie 100-fold. But the things around Heath Ledger, it's A, too long of a movie, and B, it's just, it was great for its time, but watching it back, it just doesn't hold up to me. I think we can probably have a specific conversation about the Dark Knight trilogy and its faults in particular. I haven't seen Dark Knight in a while. My memory is very much my memory of it is very much in the line of yours, where it's a little self-indulgent. Ledger carries that movie, but it doesn't have kind of the same kind of aggressive finesse that I think Batman Begins has. And speaking just, from a narrative standpoint, it is cool that this version of Bruce Wayne gets an ending. That's incredibly rare. It's just some of the things along the way make you raise eyebrows. And that's, primarily in, towards the end of Batman Begins, throughout on certain parts for Dark Knight, and a lot of Dark Knight Rises. But that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
And now I think it brings it, we're bringing it on home to, I think, what our third one definitely is, because and if I may do the honors, I believe that is the 1978 Superman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Superman 2, the 1980, but, it's the same realm, the same actors, actresses, etc. And technically, it was going to be the same.
Yeah.
Dick Donner had his choice. It wasn't going to be one film.
Well, I don't know if it was Donner's choice. I think you might be right, but, for those not in the know, 1978 Superman and 1980 Superman 2 were supposed to be one movie. So essentially what they did in Man of Steel is what they were trying to go for.
Yeah.
Incorporate the reveal of Superman plus General Zod. Kneel before Zod. General Zod.
Would you like to take this outside, General?
Which I had to ruin Anthony's joy, because there are two versions of Superman 2. There is the studio version that is credited to Richard Lester, because they fired Richard Donner off the movie at a certain point, and they kind of hammed it up. And that Anthony's favorite line, General, would you care to take the step outside, is in the Lester version, not in the re-released Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 that came out a couple years ago. And I watched the Donner one, and that I told him that line wasn't in it, and he immediately
crushed me. Crushed me.
Heart was broken. But I think we could talk about Superman and Superman 2 kind of together.
Yeah.
You know, because they do form one kind of unit.
No, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that when I think of Superman and Superman 2 is it's the overall theme on which you hit when we're talking about these top three movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hope and heart.
Yeah.
Or well, you said kindness and heart, but still hope, kindness, and heart.
Yeah, I think that is an accurate statement, you know, and it's, you know, without Blade, you know, to bring it to a little bit more modern sense, the Blade movie with the Wesley Snipes started the modern trend. I don't think, you know, but the movies before it do not start without this line of Chris Reeve movies.
Yep, I agree. This was literally the bedrock in which all of these comic book movies lie on. The foundation, the bedrock, however you want to put it.
And and are still beloved to this day.
Absolutely.
At
and
least
they still hold up to this day. Yeah, the effects can be kind of like, but if you just look past the effects and you just look at the story that's there, the characters that are there, I mean, not only Christopher Reeve, but, I mean, you got Margot Kidder as Lois. I mean, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor by himself. We could do a podcast just on his effect and how great he was as Lex.
We might be in for a little bit of a discussion there because I like Gene Hackman in most things. His Lex grates on me after a while.
I can see your point, but for what it is and what his role is supposed to be in that movie, he does it well.
I agree.
I mean, you could have took Lex Luthor out of it and called him, you know, Michael McDowell or something like that, right?
Lonnie McDowell or something like that.
Yeah, or something like that, and it could have worked just as fine. But even like just as Lex Luthor, and yes, his whole thing is all about real estate, which is kind of fucking funny.
Yeah, especially
overzealous real estate agent, essentially.
Yeah. And I mean, so much so that he's just going to sink part of the western seaboard into the ocean.
Yeah, but for the antagonist that he's supposed to be, especially in Superman 1, he does his part.
I wish they got rid of Otis, but I mean, I think I'm probably putting more of my frustration at that idiot Otis than Lex itself. But yeah, I mean that's it's honestly besides the point, because I think one of the things that the first Superman at least, and carrying on to 2, is the strength of those performances. Even Marlon Brando, who ultimately, even if you look at Chris Reeve interviews, was phoning it in.
Yes.
He still has he's still fucking Marlon Brando, and he's still bringing the goods.
Yeah, he's literally reading off cue cards and phoning it in. But even at a 1% Marlon Brando, you still get a great performance, even though he calls it Krypton and not Krypton.
Which still bugs me to this day. But, I mean, and we talked about a lot of Superman up against Man of Steel last week. But, I mean, I think, the way – this is probably the best way to introduce yourself to him. Superman. And
agreed, wholeheartely.
You get and you get the entirety of Smallville and the purpose of Smallville and why he leaves it. You get the best introduction to him and Lois.
Hands down.
Yeah.
And I cannot stress enough. So a lot of people talk about Batman the Animated Series, and they talk about how the change between Bruce and Batman is so minor, yet it's so major, just on the minor parts of it. Mm-hmm. Now, I wholeheartedly agree, and that's what makes it honestly canon Batman for me and forever. But the way Christopher Reeve changes between Clark Kent and Superman, and does it not just of like, okay, let me put on the suit and run out here. No, his mannerisms, literally they look like two different people. They act like two different people. So you can kind of go, yeah, I could kind of see how Lois is like, this fucking junkie is Superman. Nah, no way. Kick rocks, Clark. And
Yeah.
I just, and what makes me think of it is in Superman 2, which is why I wanted to bring it up, and which was one of my, besides the line we talked about, which, is near and dear to my heart, but the scene where Lois finally figures it out after Clark, like, fails attempts to burn his hand.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually burn. And once she figures it out and puts 2 and 2 together, he goes from this shrunken inward person to all of a sudden, like, you literally see him stand up tall, and he gains, like, it looks like 3 to 5 inches in height. And you can just see the bravado. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm actually Superman. And just that sudden change. And then she's like, how did I not see this? Oh my God. But it just shows you, like, how Clark, Superman, how that duality is played with him, and how to the T he has it down to where, yeah, you can fool all these people just with these minor things.
Yeah, and it also goes to show how great of an actor Chris Reeve was to think about the physical changes. And it goes back to a point we made a little bit earlier. I think that's part of the reason why these movies have still maintained their status as the golden standard for Superman, be that as it may. I mean, I think from a critical standpoint, I think you can say that Superman doesn't really have much of a narrative to it, and it's just more interconnected vignettes. It's just like, you have this part, and then you get to this part, and then you get to this part, and it doesn't have the same, like, momentum, like, say, Raiders of the Lost Ark has, where it's like every 15 minutes it is propulsive to something. And that's part of Spielberg and Lucas's design, because they wanted it to feel like a movie serial that every 15 minutes you got left on a cliffhanger. How are they going to get out of this one? That's like the one thing I kind of wish that the Superman movie did a little bit more is give like and this is probably limited to its time. It's just like they probably couldn't do it, but that's the one thing I just wish that it was more of a bigger story than dealing with Lex Luthor and real estate. But I mean, for the time, being the first big budget presentation of Superman, showing an entire generation of film viewers a man can fly and you'll believe it. Because to bring it back to the special effects talk that you had, I still think that the flying effects are better than whatever you can come up with in CG.
Yeah, no, they are very lively, and credit goes to our man Christopher Reeve himself. Like, when you're talking about Superman 1 turning the Earth back, just the emotion he's putting on his face as he's flying, or even before that, like when you see the first flight and just the joy you see in his face, like that sells. I would give it like a good 70% of the actual experience.
Yeah, I agree, and that carries on into Superman 2, because
and that's why, honestly, John, I picked 2 over 1, because you mentioned, like, I wish it was more to the story than just a bad real estate deal. Well, Superman 2 deals with not only, you can mention Zod and all, the Kryptonians trying to take over the world, whatever have you, but it's also just that inner, like we mentioned on Man of Steel, that inner of like, okay, who am I and what do I want to be, and what do I want Clark to stand for, and what do I want Superman to stand for, and how can I actually do that and yet still have a family, still have a life? How can I mesh all of these things together in my sloppy, complicated mess of an alien life?
Yeah, and ultimately, I think that's what makes Superman incredibly relatable. Even though, because I know you've heard this before, Anthony, that people say Superman is unrelatable because he can do anything. Well, I mean, I want to present the counterpoint, and I got this from one of my favorite writers, Grant Morrison. Superman is just us. He's got a girlfriend that doesn't really understand him sometimes. He's got a boss who yells at him. He's got a dog that he's got to walk. He's got a job that sometimes gets on his nerves. I would ask anybody listening, how is that not any different from anything any of us have to deal with on a daily basis?
And I would take it one extra step. He's got the anxiety of knowing that somewhere in the world somebody could be getting hurt, somebody could be getting mugged, somebody could be dying, and that you have the power to do it, but you have to prioritize your time.
Yeah, and it's you have to have faith in people to do, and that's something that came up in a comic book not too long ago, a more recent one, where Green Arrow actually asked Clark, it's like, how do you stay sane? Because you can hear everybody, you can hear all the bad shit, and Superman's like, yeah, I hear the bad shit, but I also hear that somebody took care of it. You know, at the end of the day, I believe that, you know, the good people are going to stand up when they need to most.
Mm-hmm.
And that is awe-inspiring to me, and
Yep.
the exact heart of, you know, the character, as the various people have done in the comic books, as Chris Reeve did, because I think that's what, you know, between Superman and Superman 2, Reeve is portraying that frustration. It's just like, how do I balance this? What do I make this mean? You know, I want to have so much, but I have so much responsibility. How do I balance my responsibility with what I want?
Yeah.
And, you know, and hopefully the goal out of all of these choices is that, you know, you come to the character and are open to understanding their nuances and, you know, looking at them from fresh eyes. And, you know, if this is your first time, it's just like, well, we've given you a little bit of a download on how to understand these movies better. And
not even that. If it's your 15th time watching these movies, maybe you have gained an insight that you never thought of before, or maybe it was like on a back burner, but through this vehicle, through this podcast, through our words, you're like, you know what? Maybe I can look at Wonder Woman in this angle now. I didn't think of, you know, this angle that John brought up or Anthony brought up. You know, I didn't really think about the Superman 2 transition and how, you know, I didn't appreciate Chris Reeve and what he was doing. I was just watching it and was like, oh, these crappy effects. Let me move on to Snyder's cut or something like that.
And that was me when I was a kid, to be honest, with Chris Reeve's Supermans. I thought they were boring when I was a kid. I didn't give them time of day. You know, I mean,
that's fair, man.
I would just go to like the Fleischer cartoons or Superman the Animated Series. It was just like, you know, that felt more up my alley. And then as I, you know, slowed down and got older and paid attention to what the movies were trying to do, they sung to me more.
Yeah.
You know,
again, we got older, we got slower, but we got wiser, and that's what aging does. And that's why it's kind of nice to look back on some of these films that you watched growing up and go, oh, you know, this is better than I thought it was. Or, you know, maybe it's more so, oh, this is shittier than I thought.
Yeah.
And it's just having that conversation. And while you're doing that, what you can realize that you're doing, this is my mental health corner aspect, my mental health note, is you can see who you were as, you know, as early as a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You can see who you were and where you've grown to now. And you can see the changes that you've made, the tastes that you made that are different, and you can get the chance to appreciate your past, respect your past, and appreciate that it got you to this point where you are today. It made you, I thought Superman was boring as hell too. It was like a 2 hour, almost 3 hour movie with not a lot of action going on at times. But it got me, I still sat my butt in there. I still had the awe that a man could fly. And it got me to this point where now I can look back and go, holy shit, Superman is really not just this alien all being of a man. He's actually at his core a regular guy with regular issues and some super ass issues that unfortunately I will never get to know. But take the time to revisit these movies. Hell, take the time to revisit movies we didn't touch upon, or maybe our honorable mentions, or maybe just a movie that you've been thinking about rewatching that you loved when you were 10. Do it. Go back, enjoy that time, enjoy that moment of nostalgia, but don't just enjoy it to be like, oh, that was great. Enjoy it to understand yourself better. Understand how you've grown as a person, because I guarantee everyone listening to this, all two of you, have grown exponentially from that point in time. Even if it's 6 months ago, even if it's a year ago, you have still grown exponentially from that point in time when you've watched an episode of this or a movie of that to where you are here today. And there's something in that, and it's a powerful thing, and I encourage you all to take the opportunity to do that. And that is Dr. Antonicus Maximus getting off of his soapbox.
And with that in mind, after you've done these revisitings, feel free to tell us about them on Twitter at
Hey, plug
Ludic Lounge. Feel free to email us at theludiclounge@gmail.com or tweet directly at Anthony and I at RojoLoco44 for Anthony, and for me at just_John_0891. And we'll be more than happy to talk about it. We might even have you on the show as a guest because we like guests.
Yes, we do. And you know what? I would be so honored if somebody from the audience actually hit us up and talked to us about this. You know, I might actually cry if someone said, hey, you know what? That part you mentioned about visiting nostalgia and what it means and how I grew, that really touched me. And I watched Power Rangers, and it made me think of who I was then and how I grew to now. And that actually made me feel good. And holy shit, I think I might bawl as I'm replying to you, because I would probably reply to you very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do. So, on that note, we've given our top 3. We've rambled. Hopefully people can get through the rambling to get through the good stuff.
We shaked, we rattled, but baby, did we ever roll.
And we landed the plane. Jesus Christ, did we land the plane?
No. But I understand your confusion, and John, please send us off as only you can.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, and thank you for lounging. Good night.
Bye!
Oh, boy.